He'll make it for sure. Now that's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
Hey, Luke.
Yes, Gene Simmons?
He's probably the best when it comes to this stuff.
Thanks, Gene.
You've got the touch. You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Hoops Heaven proudly brings to you Basketball Hustle.
Ellis fumbled the ball. 2 on the shot clock. Goes up a prayer. Yes! As he was falling to the ground, it's a 3. He shot it literally from the hip.
Definitely a highlight.
Here come the Pelicans. 4 on 2. McCall. Ellis. Left corner.
We're missing out.
Bang! From way down under. Cody Ellis.
Now it's time for another episode of Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle.
Hello and welcome to Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle for another week. We're here, as always, thanks to Hoops Heaven and Tab Touch Cody, and we're 2 games into the NBL Championship Series, and we're no closer to knowing who the winner will be. We're virtually at a standstill, and we've got a best-of-3 series now to look forward to after Melbourne United took Game 1 in Wollongong, and then the Hawks returned the favour on a Tyler Harvey trademark game winner. We've seen plenty of those from him before, and he answered for the Hawks in Melbourne in Game 2. So that series is tied 1-1, and we'll break all of that down on this week's show. Our fingers are crossed for Shea Ili. Let's hope that the concussion test that he did pass on Game 9 and Game 2 stays that way and he doesn't end up being sidelined once again. And we see him back out there on Sunday for Game 3, Cody. The Boomers, they've got their new coach to replace Brian Goorjian, so I'll get your thoughts on that. The NBA is also coming to Melbourne to play some preseason games, and I feel like that's a much better alternative than seeing our teams get disrupted by heading over to the US. So I'll get your thoughts on that as well. And some free agents that I want to get your thoughts on as well, Cody, and see if you think that some guys might be staying or going across the league as we start to see some players make some cryptic posts on social media that we'll try to decipher. Plenty for us to go through once again, Cody. So I'm Chris Pike, as always, joined by the former... Let's just stick with the Illawarra Hawks forward for now, Cody. Now that we're still in the championship series, I'm here with Cody Ellis. Cody, how are you feeling 1-1 in this championship series?
Yeah, look, not overly surprised. I figured the Hawks would fight back after losing that one at home and losing home court advantage. But yeah, look, championship series, we always want it to go to 5 and it be exciting. So yeah, look, feeling pretty good, but it's always frustrating after a week not knowing or being any closer to a champion. Yeah,
so we're at 1-1, but are we at 1-1 the opposite way that you expected? So we saw the road teams win both these games. So Melbourne beat the Hawks in Game 1 in Wollongong 96-88 on the back of a dominant second half. And then the Hawks, they were in control of most of Game 2. And then Melbourne, as they tend to do, fought back and got in front late. But then Tyler Harvey hit the game winner and they won 102-100. I don't think you'd be surprised that we're at 1-1, but did you think we'd get there the opposite way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was... certainly my prediction was that home teams would get it, and 2 teams that have been very good at home late in the season. So, yeah, look, pretty surprised that the road teams have won both. And, you know, there's a lot of talk about the team that wins Game 1 is usually the one that goes on to win it, and especially if it's the road team.
Yes.
But for the Hawks to fight back and snatch back that home court advantage, I think is massive for them. But, yeah, no, look... Two very interesting games and very different games that took place. So
no, they were.
It's been a fun first couple.
Yeah, I mean the first one was a complete reversal from first half to second half, and then it felt like the Hawks had things mostly on their terms in Game 2, but then they still almost found a way to lose because Melbourne just don't go away, and they've got those 3 weapons late in games where Ian Clark, Chris Golding, Matthew Dellavedova, I think they combined for 27 of their 29 points in the fourth quarter. So they just refuse to die. We'll break it all down as we go along. What's your biggest takeaway out of those first 2 games? Do you still feel like the Hawks are the favourites to win now they've got home court advantage back, or does that go out the window given we've seen the road teams win these first 2 games?
I don't think there's a clear-cut favourite in this series, and I didn't necessarily think there was going in.
Yeah.
You know, the odds were heavily in favour of
Yeah.
the Hawks coming in.
But
But
they still are.
yeah, but I still think the experience and composure of Melbourne and just a lot of the veteran guys that have been there and done that at all levels really shines through in series like this.
Yep.
And we saw that in game one.
Yes.
So look, I really don't think there is a clear-cut favourite. Obviously the Hawks on their night, when they're out and running properly, they're nearly impossible to stop.
Yep.
But I think, like we've already seen, Dean Vickerman and his staff just know how to turn a game on its head and mix things up and change it up. And with the guys they've got, like I said, that veteran kind of leadership they have, really know how to figure it out mid-game. And look, it's been a fun series already. But yeah, look, I think now with those two games going to the road teams, I think that all of a sudden just turns the series on its head, and it's a bit of a toss of the coin at the moment.
Yeah. Tyler Harvey's the big talking point out of game 2, but so was Shea Ili. How much of this series now rests on his health? So we've talked a lot over the last couple of years about his horrible run with concussions, and we just hope that he doesn't have to deal with any more, because there is a chance that his next concussion is the one that ends his career. It looks like this wasn't a concussion, at least that the initial test that they did on game night. He passed his concussion test, but out of precaution, they didn't put him back on the court after he copped a stray elbow. No surprise from Dave O'Hickey when they were diving for a loose ball. How much of, firstly, game 2, he would have been the one guarding Tyler Harvey most of that night. He would have been the one probably in Ian Clark's shoes in that final possession. It's impossible to say. It's a hypothetical, but does Melbourne win that game if Shea doesn't get hurt?
I think it's a very different game. Look, like you said, obviously Shea's probably the one that goes to Tyler in that case. And but again, if Shea's out there for that second half,
does Ian Clark score 31 points? Who knows?
Does he do that, or do the Hawks make some of those shots late? Tyler made some big plays, and look, again, we kind of said this in the previous series with the Cats and the ripple effect, what would have happened if, that goaltend was called, for instance. It would have been a completely different end to a game. So it is tough to say. But look, I think the series does hang in the balance. And if Shea's out, then all of a sudden you're thinking the Hawks should be the favourites fairly clearly.
We have seen over the years, and one of our shows earlier in the season, Simon Mitchell did the numbers of with and without Shea Ili, what Melbourne United are like over the last two years. I'd be willing to say Melbourne can't win if he doesn't play from here.
Yep, totally agree with you. I totally agree. And they did a great job to stay in the fight and fight back in game 2. And again, a lot of that at home, feeling a lot better about yourself. But like with Shea out, I can't see them winning the series and beating the Hawks 2 more times. So, and look, it's not just on the defensive end. I think, the way he runs the team as well, and when the ball's in his hands, he
pushes the pace really well.
He
and
does.
He finds the shooters. He gets Clark and Golding a lot of their shots.
He certainly does, and he's a very different point guard than what Delhi is. I think Delhi did a great job, and he's been super aggressive, and we've seen this. We saw it last year, and come finals series, he's just super aggressive. He's a lot more aggressive than he is, during the season. So. I think he's done a great job, and he just plays bully ball. But when Shea's out there, it's just a different look for them, and it's tough to guard when you've got to flip between the two and guarding the two. So if Shea's out, then you'd almost call it a Hawks win. So look, fingers crossed. We spoke fairly extensively last season when he was having those issues, and even the season before in those multiple head knocks and just out for big periods of time with constant concussion, symptoms. And it's something that we did say even back then, that if he is going to get another concussion, that would probably be it for his career, unfortunately. So, fingers crossed that that's not the case, because he's still got a lot of good basketball in him.
Oh, absolutely. He's such an impactful player.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll break down those first 2 games a lot more as we go along, but a few other things that we'll get through in this first segment. And we've got our new Boomers coach moving forward to replace Brian Gorge and Cody. Adam Caporn is the man. He started his career as he was a player at St Mary's, wasn't he?
Believe so,
And then he played in the NBL, had a stint here at the Wildcats as well, and he's just been working up through the ranks as a coach, and he's been an assistant with the Boomers. He's coached in the G League. He's done all of the right things, and I picked this as soon as the Olympics finished last year that Adam Caporn would be the man to replace him. Not to toot my own horn too much, Cody, but I did see him as a very good fit for this job, and I'm very happy for him to get the job. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think it's it's probably the obvious choice. When you step back and have a look, and look, he's done his due diligence and he's worked his way up, and he's gotten to a point where he's got so much experience now, and I think to have a guy like Capes to be able to take over the reins of someone super experienced in that spot is great, and I think it's really good for the Boomers culture and moving forward with it. So look, obviously I think that was the perfect choice.
Have you ever had anything to do with him?
A little bit, not a whole lot though. Yeah.
Do you feel like they made the right choice by going for somebody who's not also juggling an NBL job? Do you think that's the right way to go with this job?
I think so. I think it's tough because you look at Gorge and the fact that he left Zave off and all that. So it's you don't have that kind of bias.
And I always go back to when Andre Lamanis was coaching at the Bullets, and he had just left Adam Gibson out of the must have been the 2020 Olympics by that point. Might have even been 2016 when Damien Martin took his spot.
Possibly,
but either way, it made things very awkward when he has to come back and he's the captain of the Bullets, having just missed the Olympic team.
Yeah, and look, that's obviously tough and something that you have to juggle. But being the professionals that they are, they've got to deal with that kind of thing. But I do think it's good that you've got someone kind of on the outer that is coming in with kind of a clear mind on it all. So look, again, I think it's the perfect appointment from BA.
And he can also grow with the team. Like he could be the coach for a long time while Dyson Daniels is developing, while Josh Giddey's coming through. This new generation, the replacements for Paddy and Joe and Bainesy and the next generation, he can almost grow with them, which is pretty exciting. Yeah,
no, for sure. And you look at some of the powerhouses around the world, like your Serbias, your France, and even the US. They've had guys in that head coaching role for a long time that have kind of grown with teams and been part of multiple kind of eras of those teams. And look, I think that's something that the Boomers can look at doing, because there has been a bit of turnover in that space now, and some sort of continuity within that role is going to be massive for them.
All right, a couple of other things. A couple of free agents. So Keanu Pinder, we talked about him last week and how you felt like you wouldn't be surprised if he would be moving on from the Wildcats. He hasn't said a lot since, but he has made a pretty cryptic post on social media, at least saying goodbye in the short term to Perth, or it might be in the long term. But he clearly doesn't mind spending some of that big money he's making as well, Cody. He's got some pretty flash cars that I'm sure we wouldn't mind having in our garage, but even our garage probably couldn't even accommodate them. What did you make of the post? Do you read too much into it?
Look, I think it was, looking at it first, just I thought, he's gone. Like we thought. I don't know if cryptic's the right word, because it seemed fairly in your face of see you later, Perth. So, but again, that could be a see you for now and off to his next adventure. But it wouldn't surprise me if that was saying goodbye for good.
Just assuming he will leave the Wildcats, would you imagine he stays in the NBL, or does he go overseas?
Not overly sure. I'm sure he'd have some. There'd be teams that could certainly use him, and we said this last week when we spoke about it. There's certainly teams that would be able to use him, and he'd go in and help straight away. But whether he wants to do that and move around again, or if he wants to test the waters overseas in Europe, or if it's Japan or whatever. I'm not overly sure. But look, there's no way teams wouldn't reach out to him for sure.
Josh Bannon is another one who's now declared that he's on the open market after 2 years to start his career at the Brisbane Bullets. I do feel like had Justin Schiller stayed as coach of the Bullets, that he would have stayed there, because they've got a long history and they got along great. But now he's a free commodity, or an open commodity. He won't be free. But in terms of local players, does he almost become the number one target now for a lot of clubs?
He'd certainly be up there. I think he proved, obviously this year was a tough one with some of those injuries and that.
But he was great when he was out there.
He was fantastic. And we kind of saw it at the end of that first year where he just got better and better and better throughout the season. And, by the end of the year, he was, one of their go-to guys and one of their main pieces. And I think there's still massive room for growth with him. And he would be high on the target list for lots of teams for sure.
Any team jump out at you right now? If you had to pick one, where would you imagine he ends up?
It's a tough one. That is a tough one. I think that honestly, if a guy like Keanu is leaving from here, and who knows what's happening with like a Jesse Wagstaff type, and I mean that workhorse kind of player would fit perfectly for the Cats, and they're kind of missing that real piece.
Yeah.
But look, there's no real team that sticks out because I feel like he would slot into most any team. Again, he's not one of those guys that he needs the ball to be effective.
No,
he does a lot of the little things and kind of that Nick Kay role that we've kind of compared him to in the past, and would make an instant impact on most of those teams.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Simon Mitchell's putting in a fair bit of work right now. And if he can join a front court with Geordie Hunter, and if they can get Matt Hurt to come back, that would be pretty handy for next season, because they need some help for them. And he'd be the perfect guy to support them.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said, the fact that he's one of those guys that doesn't need the ball, it's kind of perfect for a team like the Phoenix who have those pieces that not just demand the ball, but they're a lot better with the ball in their hands. So that'd be a perfect pickup. And you're right, I'm sure Simon is all over it.
And he comes from Melbourne. He's played with Nathan Sobey before. So if I had to pick one, I wouldn't be surprised if that's where he ends up. We've got an NBA team finally coming to our shores instead of our NBL teams having to go to the US. It's the New Orleans Pelicans coming to Melbourne in early October to play a game both against Melbourne United and the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Pretty exciting. What do you think? Yeah,
very exciting. And it sounds like they're trying to bring their whole team, and obviously the big draw card being Zion. It'd be fun to see him out here and playing. And Chase is already in my ear trying to get us over there. But yeah, look, it's awesome and something that I didn't really think would happen ever.
No.
I always thought that quote unquote partnership would always be a one-way street in us going over there. So yeah, look, it's exciting and it's great that you got a team with certainly a big name in Zion coming down, and hopefully he's healthy and actually does come down here and play. And it's going to be interesting to see how they go playing our style of play.
Well, it will be, because we've always had to adjust to the bigger NBA courts, the bigger three-point line. But now all of a sudden, I assume we'll be playing on an NBL-sized court. I don't imagine they would create an NBA court just for this. So
I think so.
It would be interesting how they adjust, because a lot of the time we see the NBA players struggle on FIBA courts if you go to the Olympics or World Cups. I think it's good that it's not one of the bigger clubs, if you know what I mean, because the Pelicans are from a small market in New Orleans, and from their point of view, this is a chance for them to grow. If say the Celtics or the Lakers or the Bulls come here, they don't really need to grow their brand.
No.
But for the Pelicans, they're probably looking at it as a chance to become Australia's team.
Yeah.
I think they see this as a real chance to grow their brand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. And you're right, a team like that kind of just middle of the pack in terms of popularity. And obviously they come down here, they interact with the people in Melbourne and, do clinics with the kids and all that sort of stuff. All of a sudden, the Australian fan base just skyrockets for them. So, look, certainly very good that it is one of those kinds of teams.
You would think it'll be probably straight after Hoops Fest if we match it up date-wise with last year, but if it wouldn't be that disruptive, is it? I mean, if you're Melbourne and the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, do you take these games pretty seriously when you do play the Pelicans? Or given the season's already started, how seriously would you take them?
I still think you take them seriously.
Yeah.
At that point in the season, you're still trying to find your feet a little bit, and gameplay is an absolute premium because you're still trying to get in game shape.
It's probably a chance to get better as well because you're playing a higher level of competition.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have all that travel.
Yes.
So we constantly see teams that go over struggle when they come back and don't really catch up for a couple of weeks. So
or ever.
Yeah, we've certainly seen that. But yeah, look, I think they do. They take it seriously, and look, like you said, the quality of opponent is all of a sudden a world class opponent, and I think you would absolutely take it seriously.
Would Rob Lowe try to get under the skin of Zion?
I wouldn't want to try and do it.
All right, last thing before we take a break, and then we'll get deeper into the championship series. Movement on the coaching front at the Sydney Kings, but not with Brian Goorjian. He's remaining in charge, but he's got some pretty high-quality help now in the assistant coaching chair with one of his part owners, Andrew Bogut, on board. That can only be a good thing because I feel like he's probably already been basically an assistant coach, just not officially.
Yeah. It's I think it's a really good appointment for the Kings, and one of those guys that you take away all these controversial stuff on Twitter and all that kind of background stuff. Just an unbelievable basketball mind, and someone that's been on every single level in the world of basketball, and played with some absolute Hall of Famers and all that kind of thing, and one of the best passing bigs ever, really, and it's just I think it's the perfect appointment, and be interesting to see if the whole part ownership and how that all works, but there's clearly no rules around it, so
it doesn't seem like it.
No. So it's great. It's a great appointment, and I think it's probably something that they'll look towards in the future whenever Gorge decides to move on, or if they move on from Gorge at some point. And I'm surprised it's taken this long, honestly. I think that he's probably wanted to step into that space, and he's just decided now is a good time. So, look, I think great appointment for the Kings, and especially with some of their young bigs.
You touched on this already, but I'll ask you the question. Do you think this is a stepping stone to him becoming the next head coach whenever Gorge steps down or he's moved on? Because everything you said with his basketball mind and his background and his history, he seems to me like he'd be a natural head coach, and it's probably just a matter of if he actually wants to make that commitment.
Yeah, look, I think so. And I think this is that stepping stone towards that for sure. I think Gorge's got 2 years left on his contract, I believe.
I think it was a 3-year deal.
Yeah, okay. So, that's probably perfect. A couple years as an assistant and then step into that role. Because, again, I'm not sure how much longer Gorge has anyway. And, whether they decide to continue with that contract it's going to happen this year. Obviously, he's going to be the head coach this year, but whatever happens after that, who knows? And it's kind of that perfect little stepping stone for him.
From a selfish point of view, those post-match press conferences with Andrew Bogut would be a lot of fun, wouldn't they?
Yeah, you will enjoy those.
It would be very difficult to keep him on track, I imagine. I imagine whatever he wants to get off his chest, he'll be getting off his chest.
I look forward to hearing those, mate.
Yes. All right, Cody, that's been a big first segment. Let's take a break. We'll hear from Tab Touch, and when we come back, we'll break down the first 2 games of the Championship Series.
Sounds good.
He'll make it for sure. That's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Imagine what you could be buying instead.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. I'm here with Cody Ellis, and let's break down what we've seen so far in the first 2 games of the Championship Series, Cody. Let's go to Game 1 in Wollongong back on Saturday night. I feel like it went pretty much to script for the Hawks in the first half. They got everything on their terms. They were leading 53-43 at halftime. They were shooting the ball well. They were shooting 50% from the field, 50% from 3. Sam Froling was going well. He had 12 points to his name already. Todd Blanchfield came out and hit 3 threes in that first half. And then the game took a complete turn in the second half, and almost the complete opposite. So everything that the Hawks were doing well, Melbourne started to do well in the second half. They outscored them 53-35. They shot the ball well, but ultimately it was turning the offensive rebounds back on the Hawks. The Hawks have been the best offensive rebounding team all season, but in this game, Melbourne ends up with 22 second chance points, and they got to the foul line 25 times to 12. Ultimately, it just feels like they won the physical battle the longer that game went. How do you look back on Game 1?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. First half, it looked very much like the Hawks were in control and very comfortable, and that was without, they're all first team players, having an impact.
Yeah.
Todd came on, hit some shots, and they were feeling good about themselves, and Sam was great, and they were just kind of, it seemed like they were comfortable, I think is probably the big thing, because they were allowed to play the way that they've been successful all season. Go into halftime, all of a sudden, Dean's probably lit a rocket, and there's been some choice words said. And yeah, Melbourne come out, and again, just like I mentioned earlier, they showed their composure and just that veteran savvy and their experience, probably more than anything, and just kind of chipped away and grinded it, and just did a really, really good job of scrapping up the game and making it a physical contest.
Yes.
And you're right, just being that team that was the aggressor and kind of doing what the Hawks usually do to others back to the Hawks, and they didn't really respond too well in that second half.
Ultimately, the player that had the biggest impact on the final result was Marcus Lee.
Yeah, he was awesome.
So he finished with 14 points, 15 rebounds, to the point where Sam Froling didn't play at all in the last 7 minutes of the game, with the game on the line. What did you make of the Hawks deciding to go small? And Melbourne certainly combated it well, and Marcus was massive.
Yeah, look, I mean, he was 100% from the field too, and he just had a really, really good game. And where they was struggling to score, I think he did a really good job at points to just, again, like you said, get on those boards and those putbacks and those little dump offs and little dunks that he's getting, and he was really good. Tatum going without Sam for the back end of the game was an interesting one, but I think he had to change it up a bit because what they were doing wasn't working. Yeah. So he had to try something different. Didn't work out. Obviously you flip it to game 2, like we'll talk about, and that was a different story. But
it was really interesting. It ended up almost being, for a lot of those last 7 minutes, a one-on-one game with Davo Hickey and Marcus Lee. Yeah. Marcus Lee clearly won the battle because Davo's best attributes are his athleticism and his energy by going to the basket, getting the offensive rebounds, being able to finish at the rim. But doing that up against a 7-footer was never going to end well for him.
No. And I mean, look, that's exactly what United would have wanted is, let Davo be the one making decisions and making the plays because you're going to beat the Hawks doing it that way. That's just not Davo's strengths at the moment. And just stroke of genius putting a guy like Marcus onto him, and that length just bothered him, and Marcus is long enough and quick enough that he can slide with Davo and still contest it at the rim. And I mean, we saw that play out for that last 7 minutes. And look, it was just a really the epitome of tale of two halves. Yeah, it was for both teams.
We talked off the top of those experienced guys for Melbourne as well, and Chris Golding didn't have a great night, but he has 11 points in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Ian Clark only has 13 points for the game, but 10 of those come in the second half. And Matthew Dellavedova hits 2 huge threes in the fourth quarter as well. Those big guns, they answer those moments so well, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. And again, just timely shots and just loving that big moment and really thriving off it. And again, you've got experience like those three. There's not a whole lot of more experience around the whole league. So, for Melbourne to have the 3 guys like that, it's really no secret why they win these closer games usually.
What we're saying is the Hawks are almost reliant on Tyler Harvey and Trey Calloway. It's no surprise when they are the all-first team backcourt for the entire league. But we saw it in the series against the Phoenix where in game 2 they have a stinker and the team has a stinker. Games 1 and game 3 they win, and I think they averaged 46 points between them in those 2 wins. And then game 1 they really struggled. Tyler Harvey just didn't see the ball. So this is what Shea Ili and Daly do so well. They just deny these guys getting the ball. We saw it with Bryce Cotton in the first series as well, and he only takes 10 shots for the game, only has 9 points. And Trey Cal really struggled, 6 points, 3 of 11 shooting. The Hawks aren't going to win too often if those two are combining for 15 points and not getting a single free throw either for the game.
Yeah, no, there's a reason they're both all first team players and they've been unbelievable all season. And there's a big reason why the Hawks finished on top of the ladder and they were the team to beat all year. But yeah, you don't often see both of them have down games. There's been nights where one of them's going off and the other one's been quiet and vice versa, but it's not often you see both of them have a down night. And again, when you've got guys like Shea and Delhi guarding both of them, And then even your subs, Flynn Cameron does a great job.
Yes.
And I think Tanner Krebs has come in and been disruptive.
He's got that extra bit of length.
Yeah, he
doesn't
does.
Yeah.
And, Ian Clark comes in and he's got that experience.
He's a much better defender than I think we've ever given him credit for.
Absolutely. And I think that they do a great job, and just throwing extra bodies at those two is tough, and it's a grind for both of them. And
Clark even did a really good job on Bryce at times when Shea needed a break in that first series.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a fun little battle that we're watching with these two guards. And look, it's something that they've got to figure out and figure out how to get themselves involved better and not take these kind of contested and probably poor shots from them, even though they kind of need to be the ones taking shots.
Yes. So Melbourne, it felt like they took a real edge just winning that physical battle, regaining home court advantage. So after winning that, all they needed to do was win 2 home games and they win the championship. From a Hawks perspective, were you pretty concerned after that game 1 loss?
Yeah. Look, I think that just the ability of Melbourne to adjust mid-game, I think was so evident. And, we spoke about it last week, and if these games are going to be close and high-scoring games, and the Hawks are going to win them.
Yep.
And, for Melbourne to be able to kind of stop that flow, especially on the road, it was certainly very concerning if you were a Hawks fan or someone in the Hawks camp, because averaging 101 points throughout the season, and then feeling like you're pretty much on track going into half time, and then just
35 points in the second half,
being absolutely dominated on that end of the floor in the second half is something that they need to figure out, and they can't afford to have halves like that.
Yep.
Maybe a few minutes, but they've got to be able to adjust. And look, it was certainly worrying signs after that game 1 if you were a Hawks fan.
Felt like game 2 was a must-win.
Yes.
I don't think they would have been able to come back from 2-0 down. And like you said, they got it more on their terms. So they got to the 102 points. Again, we've said this about Melbourne all along. The higher scoring game it is, they're going to really struggle to stick with these teams. And in the end, the Hawks take game 2, 102-100. I mean, let's just talk about the last 10 seconds to start with. So Ian Clark takes a really tough 3 when Melbourne's down by 2, gets fouled by Tyler Harvey just taking a hack from behind him. It was double teamed and probably didn't need to do it.
No.
It's very rare you're not going to make body contact in that situation, even if you do get a fair bit of the ball. So Ian Clark steps up, shows he's poised to hit all 3, and
didn't hit the rim on one.
No, he didn't. they did not look like missing. So he puts Melbourne in front by a point, 100-99. Up the other end, Tyler Harvey gets isolated. Really good, good job. And not having Shea Ili out there certainly played its part. Ian Clark did a pretty good job. I don't know if he could have done a whole lot more. Maybe like you mentioned earlier, maybe you try to make him drive instead of settling for a 3. But that's probably easier said than done when he's as crafty as he is, and he's putting all those jab steps on you, and you probably don't know when he's going to take the shot. You might have thought he would wait 3 or 4 more seconds before shooting, so maybe that's also caught Clark off guard. But Tyler Harvey, we've seen him do that for 4 years now, hit these sort of shots, and gives the Hawks the lead. And no surprise to see the ball in the hands of Chris Goulding for Melbourne to take that shot. I don't think it was the play that Melbourne wanted to run, so I think the Hawks did a good job blowing that up. But Chris's shot was 75% down as well. It rattled in and was halfway down and somehow didn't end up falling. He was so close to another game winner, and is probably very close to a championship winner if they go up 2-0. Sum up that last 10 seconds for me.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And look, you're right. I think in that instance, you have to make Tyler drive. Like, you have to. You've got to be up and in. And look,
should have they doubled him?
That's a tough one. I'm not sure if double, especially when he caught the ball and he was isolated.
Yeah.
Different if it's, a pick and roll or something like that, then you'd probably throw a double possibly, but tough to do it just randomly running at you, because he is a willing passer as well. So like that's not an issue. But you've got to make him a driver. And look, he, like you said, he's so crafty with it that if you're up and in, he's able to get what looks like a shot for him off. And, if you're up and in and take away his landing space, then they're probably going to call that a foul too.
Yep.
And you don't want to bite at his jabs and stuff like that, but he's so quick off that first step that it's tough to do. I mean, tough contested shot, and again, you kind of live with the consequences. But I feel like in that situation, you've got to be up and in and make him drive. On the other end of the floor, I think it was interesting that, before that when Melbourne were down and, they took 2 or 3 threes to put them up. Usually the rule is, if you're at home, you go for overtime.
Yes,
and if you're on the road, you go for the win.
Yeah.
I think Melbourne had all the momentum, they'd fought back and got to within striking distance and then took the lead, obviously, on the Ian Clark foul and foul shots. But yeah, look, like you said, the Hawks did a great job of blowing up that last play. It wasn't quite the same play that we've seen.
No.
It was a wrinkle to it. It was similar setup, but there certainly was a wrinkle to it. But yeah, look, I think still a heck of a look from a world-class shooter. And I'm not sure how it didn't go in. That banked and rolled in, you're right, 75%.
Yeah.
The ball was below the rim.
Yeah.
And just because of the bank, it's just that extra bit of spin, spun it out. And
He didn't get the home court roll, did he?
No, he didn't. He didn't. So selfishly, I'm glad it didn't go in
Yes.
because, now we've got a tied series again. And you're right. If that goes down and Melbourne win that, then it's pretty much series over.
Yeah.
You'd
that
probably...
that would have been really tough to come back from.
Yeah, you'd probably expect the Hawks to go back home and win it, and then Melbourne back probably winning it back home. But look, it's all of a sudden it's made it a 3-game series.
A few interesting things. So we talked about in game 1. So the Hawks decided to go small in the fourth quarter. They did the opposite in this game. So the entire night, Rob Lowe, Jack White were in foul trouble. Marcus Lee was in foul trouble at times as well, but he was the one that did stay out there for most of the game and avoided getting that fourth foul. So he was able to play, I think, almost 30 minutes. But for the first time pretty much all season, so I wonder if Justin Tatum's been keeping this up his sleeve. They went with Sam Froling and Lockie Olbrich together. Seemed to work as well.
Certainly did. And the Melbourne bigs were just in foul trouble all game.
Yep.
Had their hands full, and yeah, look, it was tough for Melbourne, and just really worked well for the Hawks. I think we mentioned it throughout the year while we hadn't seen it, and we thought it could be a recipe for success, and I mean, clearly was. They worked really well together, and I mean, they're 2 big, strong bodies, and that's tough to guard.
So all those areas that the Hawks got dominated in the second half of game 1, they turned it around in game 2. So they end up winning the rebound count, back to their usual offensive rebounding numbers, 22 of those and 15 second chance points. And they also got to the foul line. So they got to the foul line 30 times to 18 to Melbourne. And they also forced Melbourne into 16 turnovers and scored 26 points off those. So this Hawks team, if they can create turnovers and get out and run, they're really, really tough to stop. So I know they only ended up winning on the buzzer and they were lucky to win, but it did feel like they had the game on their terms most of the way.
Yeah, for sure. Hit the nail on the head. They just kind of flipped the script and went back to what has made them successful and be the aggressor. And, I think a lot of that is, because they've got those 3 bigs in foul trouble in Rob Lowe and Marcus Lee and Jack White. Those guys were in foul trouble most of the game. Yeah. All of a sudden, they're not as aggressive on the offensive boards or, even the defensive boards. Those box outs probably aren't quite as aggressive as they usually would be. And, they were just relentless and just kind of the Hawks that we've seen throughout the whole season. So, did a great job to come out on the front foot and be the aggressors.
The numbers don't lie sometimes. So all season long, the Hawks have averaged, I think it was 101.4 points a game and I think it was 9 turnovers. And they just don't lose when they get 100-plus points and less than 10 turnovers. And they didn't do either of those things in game 1. Game 2, 102.6 turnovers. And it does feel like it's their recipe for success.
Yeah, for sure. And look, for a team that play the way the Hawks do and that out in the open court, fast-paced game to take care of the ball the way they do is just so impressive.
You're right. With that style, you would imagine them averaging 13, 14 turnovers a game.
And still being able to get up a ton of shots and probably more shots than the opposing team.
Yeah.
But that's why they've been so successful is because they've been able to look after the ball. And maybe some of the shots every now and then is a pretty poor shot, and sometimes a bad shot is just as bad as a turnover.
But they get so many offensive
But
rebounds.
they do. They've got guys that crash the boards so well, and they're long and athletic and just relentless on the boards, like we've said. And I mean, you getting in a running race with these guys, you're not going to win. And especially Melbourne, they're not going to win that. They've got to slow the game down and make it a grind and a slog, and keep the game in the 80s or low 90s, because that's how they're going to win. But Hawks on the other hand, when they're out and running and doing what they're doing, they're better than anybody, like we've seen.
Well, because Melbourne's offense, you can't ask for much more. They shoot 57% from the field for the game.
Yep.
They go 15 of 32 from three, but the difference is they end up taking 16 less shots for the game and 12 less free throws.
Well, there's not too many percentages that you see like that for a losing team.
Yeah.
Like it's it's a bit like that game 3 of the Cats and Melbourne series. Same thing, Cats shot very similar numbers and ended up losing.
Yep.
But it's super impressive from the Hawks' point of view. It's just very, very impressive, and obviously their recipe for success.
Talk to me about Jack White's game. So he was in foul trouble, but he still plays 18 minutes. Does not take a single field goal for the entire game. Doesn't get to the foul line, doesn't take a shot. The only thing he does all night is have 6 rebounds in 18 minutes. Clearly, he's a player that's very, very low on confidence right now.
Yeah, and look, plain and simple, it's not good enough. You can't have nights like that. Yeah, he's got to be getting shots up as well. Like, he was just basically a non-factor all night. And look, he's in this one, you're right, his confidence did look quite low. And it's something that, whether that's to do with his foul shooting he's been struggling with, and I don't necessarily think so.
Yeah.
But again, we've seen
because
that.
he did shoot. I mean, his 3-point shooting in game 3 against the Wildcats, like we talked about last week, was incredible.
Yeah.
So he shouldn't have a lack of confidence in his shot.
No, I don't think so. And obviously the foul line, he's had the yips, and that is what it is. And we saw it with Zave a few years ago. Again, we spoke about this a couple podcasts ago that it's almost like he's scared to get fouled. But I don't think that's where Jack's mindset would be, because he didn't look switched on at all.
No.
So it was a really strange game, something that we haven't really seen out of Jack White ever, since being with Melbourne. So I'm sure he'll look back on it and kick himself and come out super aggressive in game 3, I would imagine.
Similar to Shea, I mean, they can't win this series unless he's...
No.
Even if he's not making the shots, he has to be taking close to 10 shots a game, doesn't
he? He has to be putting pressure on the Hawks' bigs.
Yes.
The Hawks did a great job to put pressure on Melbourne's bigs and force fouls and that kind of a thing. It's got to be the same down the other end.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to take it to them and put them under pressure on that end of the floor as well. Not only does that, maybe they pick up a couple early fouls and then their rhythm's all mixed up, but it tires them out too.
Yep.
They didn't have to do a whole lot of extra work on that end of the floor because he was kind of just out there floating.
Yep.
So, look, I wouldn't expect to see a game anywhere close to this again from him. He's too good a player, way too good of a player, and conversations around it. And he'll, like we said, come out super aggressive in game 3, I'm sure.
The opposite side to that was Tanner Krebs.
It's awesome.
He might be becoming the player that we've talked about him becoming for the last couple of years, Cody, because he's playing great in this series. And he's out there for 20 minutes in game 2, 12 points. I think he also had 5 rebounds, 4 assists. He's contributing right across the board. And on a night where pretty much every Melbourne player is in the minus, on the plus-minus, he's plus 20 with him out there.
Yeah.
He didn't play for the last 4 minutes, though. Did Dean Vickerman err by not playing him down the stretch?
It's a tough one. He had those 12 points, and I think he had them straight almost. Or he had 9 or 10 of them straight.
Yeah, he did.
But and again, it's not just him putting points on the board. It's him being disruptive on the other end too. I think he did a great job on both ends of the floor and got out and pushed it and made some really good plays. And it's just been super aggressive. I mean, look, last 4 minutes, you want your guys out there that are battle tested and proven, and it's something that I'm sure the way Krebs has been playing, it's something that was probably in the back of Dean's mind. But late game, you want those guys out there that. You're fully trusted and committed to. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But no, look, Krebs has been great. He's been awesome, and kind of that spark that we tried to figure out before the series on who was going to be that guy for each team and to step up. And Krebs is great. He's been great, and just I think similarly Flynn Cameron, who didn't bother the scoreboard, but I thought he had some pretty big minutes there for Melbourne as well.
Yeah. All right, Cody. We'll take a deep breath here from Tap Touch. I'll let you think about what we're going to see in Games 3 and Game 4, and then a couple of other things to wrap things up. And this hour's flown by once again.
Sure has.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball has even bounced? Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? You've got the touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today.
You win some, you lose more.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle here with Cody Ellis for the last segment this week. Before we finish off with a couple of other things, Cody, Game 3 of this 1-1 championship series back in Wollongong Sunday night, and then Game 4 Wednesday night back in Melbourne, which we'll definitely need now.
Yeah.
So before we come back next week, these two games would have been played. What are you expecting to see?
Look, I would expect Wollongong go home and Wollongong and win. Sorry, Illawarra go home to Wollongong and win. But yeah, look, a lot of it revolves around if Shea is going to actually be fit and ready to play. It's a very different game if Shea's in that lineup for Melbourne. So
if he's right to play on Sunday, he's fresh as well because he didn't play the entire second half.
Yeah, for sure. So, but no, look, I think the Hawks will go home and get the win back at home with a chance to go to Melbourne and secure it.
Do they? Do we come back next week ready for a Game 5, or do we have a championship winner?
I think we go to Game 5 in this. I really do, and I hope so.
Yes.
Again, selfishly, I hope so. Too fun of a series so far.
So head to tabtouch.com.au or the Tab Touch app to check out some odds for the rest of this series. And for Game 3, so for Game 3 on Tab Touch, the Hawks are $1.40, United $2.90. Given you're tipping the Hawks to win, you probably feel like that's on the money?
Yeah, about right, I think. But yeah, look, I still think it's probably closer than those odds are saying. But again,
it's interesting. The Hawks were still favourite for Game 2, even though it was in Melbourne and they'd lost Game 1, which I found interesting.
Yeah. I think again, if Shea's out, then I think that probably balloons a bit more in the Hawks' favour again. So I think with Shea out, that's probably the odds you'd think. With Shea in, it's probably a lot closer than that.
Yep.
So look, it's been a fun series and hard to pick.
Yes. What's the final score once the series is over, Cody? What's the most likeliest scenario? So we've got the Hawks to win 3-1, which is paying $2.30 on Tab Touch, so that's the most favoured option.
Yep.
We've then got the Hawks to win 3-2, which is $3.15, and then Melbourne United to win 3-1 is $5.25. Melbourne United to win 3-2 is $6.50. Which one do you feel is most likely?
Look, I still think the Hawks win it, but it'll go to 5. So I reckon
3-2?
it's the 3-2 to the Hawkies. Yep.
All right, so go and take a look at that on Tab Touch, and we'll come back next week and see how it's gone. Let's wrap things up with a couple of other things, Cody. So we've now got a WNBL Championship winner, the Bendigo Spirit. They were the best team all season. They beat the Townsville Fire in 2 games. Sammy Wickham, probably her best ever season in the WNBL. She was
saying something.
Yes, it is. She was the MVP of the league, MVP of the grand final series. Unfortunately, though, it does feel like this entire WNBL season almost went along invisibly.
It did. It really did. Which is unfortunate because I think the talent level has been just constantly on the rise.
Yeah,
for the past
I think
few
the action on the court was good again. Yeah. It's just that it's difficult to find it.
Yeah, it is. And there's not really too much advertising around it. It's tough to know when games are unless you're really
looking
involved in it.
Yeah.
And which is again unfortunate because like I said, the talent levels are just unbelievable, and there's some awesome imports that are coming in, but just the locals. I think the local talent has just been on the constant rise for so long. So it's it's a frustrating one, obviously, but hopefully that starts to change. Yeah,
it is unfortunate because most Opals players play in the WNBL. unlike what we see in the NBL where we can't get NBA players, you get WNBA players coming out here to play as imports as well. So on the court, the product is there. So what it now needs is a real kickstart by having a machine behind it, and it will become under the NBL umbrella now that this season's finished. Is it a long-term change, or do you feel like even by next season we can see some pretty rapid growth?
I think we see some pretty rapid growth pretty quickly, but to where it needs to get, I think is going to be more of a long-term thing. But again, it's hard to not grow from not a whole lot. You know what I mean? So it's something that I think is great for the league, that it's now under that NBL umbrella or banner, and you know we've seen how the NBL's grown from strength to strength just constantly throughout the years, and hopefully the WNBL can follow its footsteps and kind of be that big league around the world.
Yeah, it's even little things. It's just having a online and social media presence, which the league doesn't have. I mean, there were times during this season where you log on to the WNBL website and there's probably for a 3-week period the same main article on the website that doesn't change for 3 weeks. And even during the grand final series, there's no news, there's no articles, there's no match reports from the series. You could go and click on the live stats link, and that's the only way you can find out who wins a grand final series. It's a small step, but it's the little things like that won't be happening next season once the NBL's sort of taking over. For
sure. And that, you know, something like that is simply not good enough for a professional league and one as talented as the one we have here. So yeah, like you said, I think a lot of those little things will be the main changes and focal points early, because you know the talent is certainly here, and that's something that was a bit of a struggle with the NBL. It was getting that talent here to start with, so that it could grow the brand. Bit different with the WNBL, where it's kind of the opposite. You know, the talent is certainly here and it's constantly coming. And it's just those little background things that need to change, and I think they will pretty much straight away.
Yes, let's hope so. So I want to wrap up this week. I want to run through a whole bunch of players that are now on the free agent market coming out of this NBL season, Cody. I won't include any Hawks or Melbourne players while their season's still going, but we'll run through these. So what I want to get from you is a yes or no, will they come back to their current club? And if the answer is no, will they stay in the NBL or go elsewhere? Let's start right at the top. Bryce Cotton.
Starting big. No, I reckon he goes to Japan.
Okay. Keanu Pindu we already touched on earlier, but you can repeat what you already think if you like.
Yeah. No. And I reckon he goes to Europe.
Yep. Which is what we thought he might have done when he first left Cairns in the first place.
Yeah.
Dylan Windler. Because it does look like Christian Doolittle is locked in to come back.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I think the Cats need to heavily go after him.
Yeah.
Because the way he played in the backstretch of the season was what they'd signed up for initially. So
absolutely.
Yeah, look, I think they do continue with Windler.
Kendrick Davis is a really interesting one.
No, but I think he stays in the league.
Okay.
Not sure where, but I think he stays in the league.
I still maintain if you are going to have to replace Bryce Cotton with somebody, he would be the perfect guy to do it with.
Yeah.
His Adelaide teammate, Montrezl Harrell.
Another interesting one that I'm not overly sure.
But does he keep his Reebok ambassadorship if he doesn't play in the NBL?
Yeah, I know. Who knows, mate? Who knows? Look, I reckon he stays. Yeah, I reckon he comes back.
Isaac Humphries.
Doesn't stay with Adelaide, but moves on, I reckon.
Yep. Yeah.
Moves team.
I think he'll stay in the NBL.
Yeah.
I think you're right. James Bateman, does he come back to the Brisbane Bullets?
I don't think so.
I feel like now they've made a change in coach, I think we'll see a lot of personnel changes.
Yeah.
Same with Keandre Cook?
Yeah, I think so.
Josh Bannon, we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
We see him staying in the NBL, but probably not Brisbane.
No, not Brisbane.
Sam Wardenberg is a very interesting one now that there's no Adam Ford at the Taipans.
I wouldn't surprise me if we saw him back in New Zealand.
Yeah, I think
that's probably the obvious thought. So.
Really interested to get your thoughts on this one. Taco Fall, does he come back to the Breakers or not?
I mean, he signed with them, so you know, I think we probably do see him back with the Breakers.
That means that we won't see Parker Jackson Cartwright, will we?
I don't think so anyway. I wouldn't expect him to come back anyway.
In the league at all?
No, I reckon he'll move on.
Didn't seem to enjoy himself, did he?
No, he seemed fairly miserable late.
Yeah.
So
So did Matt Mooney after his last game.
Well, we've gone from thinking they need to get his signature straight away to he's not coming back.
Changed very quickly in his very last game.
Yeah, it really did.
Yes.
Really did. So yeah, look, I don't think we see Mooney again.
Derek Walden Jr. Does he stay at the Phoenix?
It's a tough one. Probably. I think so. Just didn't get a good run at it at all this season. No. I mean, we saw once he did get a few games under his belt how good he could be again.
He was a match winner.
Yeah.
And then he had a freak hamstring injury again. Yeah.
So, but again, that's something that Simon's harped on about is not getting these players that are
injury prone.
And look, we hadn't obviously seen it before with Walton. So, whether they weigh up those options on if those injuries were, just because he is becoming that kind of a player or not.
Or just unlucky.
Yeah. So, but yeah, look, I think he stays.
What about Joe Westcamp? He got better and better as the season went on.
He did.
Midway through the season, we thought he was gone.
Yeah, and, turned out to be the ultimate pro in figuring it out how he can affect the team and be a big part of what they were doing. So I think they probably move on from him and find a different piece. And I'm not sure if he'd stick around in the NBL.
Yeah. Matt Hurt, I would imagine he gets a contract offer from 10 clubs, doesn't he?
Absolutely. I would expect Simon to be throwing some serious cash at him and to try and get him back because he was an absolute game changer for them. And again, come the finals, I don't think he got a fair shake at it and just didn't touch the ball enough. Yeah. So
and when he did, he won the game for them in game 2.
Yep. And look, he's something that, again, you talk about continuity with imports throughout clubs, and I think he's the perfect guy that you can build around.
Yeah, I think so. Jalen Adams. Really interesting.
Very interesting one. Just kind of didn't really reach where he had previously.
No, but he's showed enough glimpses where he's a temptation, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And, a previous league MVP, it's hard to turn your nose up at that. I'm not sure. It's a tough one. It's just going to depend on if Gorge wants to go that way again. And I'm going to say no.
Yep.
I'm going to say no. And I don't think he'll be back with the Kings, but wouldn't surprise me if he was in the league again.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn up at somewhere like a Cairns or somewhere like that where he becomes the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
Let's put these guys together. Milton Doyle and Jordan Crawford. Yes or no going back to the Jack Jumpers?
Doyle, I would say yes.
Yep.
Crawford, I'd probably say no. Yeah, look, tough one. And again, not sure what's happening with Roth and all that.
Yes.
So that could change it. But I think Doyle you'd have to keep around. Crawford, I think, while he's been great and done some really good things, I think you could probably find a different piece for them.
They need a point guard, don't they?
Yeah,
they
like
need
a
genuine
proper
point guard.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we'll keep a track on that. I'll jot down your answers, Cody, and as we get an answer from each one of them over the coming weeks, we'll see how your predictions stack up.
I look forward to going over for 25.
And we'll also see how the championship series goes. And when we come back, we'll either be preparing for a game 5 or we'll have a championship winner, Cody. So, yeah, it's been a lot for us to get through. Thank you to Tap Touch for making it possible, and to Hoops Heaven as always. I'm Chris Pike. I'll leave it there and leave you with the final word, Cody.
Looking forward to coming back and talking through our Game 5 preview, mate.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball's even bounced? You might have the touch. When the weather's wet, can you feel who'll triumph? You've got the power. Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? Then you too might be harnessing the power of the touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.